Nigga, this is what that jungle do. You been plotting, nigga, wasn't you? I should've never even fuck with you. Yeah, I started in the back, had to skip the line, no,
They came up with the biological circumstance. There's something happening inside of this person from a chemistry perspective. There's something happening in their body. There's some kind of bacteria. There's a virus. There's something. Because originally they just said it was demons in the person. You guys ever seen The Exorcist? Blair Witch Project, those kind of movies back then. It was always, oh, it's a demon coming out of this person. Same thing with Jesus when he was casting out demons metaphorically. And then there's other ways to look at certain things like this. That's where they would come at it from. There's demons in this person. So what do we need to do? Well, they came up with different methods. Let's go down to a man by the name of Benjamin Rush. If you don't know this man, I'm going to enlighten you about some things right about now. Benjamin Rush, known as the father of American psychiatry. A white man here in America who, from the University of Pennsylvania, he started to say things like, well, black people, for example, have a mental disease. Now, let's also remember this. When people say mental disease, because that's what it used to be called, then it transferred into mental disorder and or mental illness. I want you to be very critical when hearing these terms: mental disorder, mental disease, mental illness. In order for you to say disease or illness, there has to be something that can be measured or tested to determine a biological reality. There's something there, some bacteria, virus, something that's in the body that you can measure and you can see it in a lab, right? You can see it in a lab test. There is no such thing as a depression virus, for example. So Benjamin Rush said black people have a mental disease called negritude. It causes their skin to be dark. It is a form of leprosy. And it is what makes them inferior to us. And it also makes them sick. So we need to be separated or segregated from them. Did you know that Benjamin Rush, known as the father of American psychiatry, said that negritude is something that infects black people, and we have to make sure we are not involved with them in any way, shape, or form, or else we will become infected. He said that the solution to this, because their skin is dark and it's just horrible, and oh my God, we don't want our skin to get dark and infected. So what is the solution? We need to expose the white meat. So he had different solutions to make our skin white, because it being dark meant we were crazy, but it being white meant we were sane. I wish I were lying. That's Benjamin Rush. Well, let's continue. Reason to mind you, if he's the father of American psychiatry, then anyone in the area of mental health or psychiatry, psychology, a therapist, all of this is a part of the foundation of what you study. So you need to know this before parroting the updated version of the insane, disproven, unproven, nonsensical, idiotic things that they have us out here parroting. Let's continue to the next person here. You have someone by the name of, by the way, Benjamin Rush. The person's face, that face that you see on the seal of the American Psychiatric Association, is Benjamin Rush. And his face was enshrined on there from 1965. I believe now they have a brain, not like the big black brain though, but they have a brain on there as the image because of so many protests and people calling out the fact of how racist Benjamin Rush was. Next person, you have someone by the name of Dr. Henry Cotton. Now, Henry Cotton, same thing, biological perspective. People who are insane have a biological issue. There's something inside of their bodies causing them to be crazy, causing them to be different from us and for them not to think logically. But what was his solution to this mental problem? Because people are crazy. His solution, well, Dr. Henry Cotton said, well, there's a bacteria causing them to be insane. So we have to do things to remove body parts because these body parts were infected with this bacteria. So the first area they would go to were the teeth. So Dr. Henry Cotton and his assistants, nurses, would start extracting teeth out of the heads of people, right out of their mouth, one by one by one by one. Because they said this will help with their mental illness and they will become sane and they will no longer be crazy. Then he said, well, you know what? Since my patient isn't getting better, because people, I don't think would get better if you just start yanking teeth out of their mouth, right? He said, well, because they're not getting better, clearly, well, they've swallowed in their life because of drinking water or eating food or whatnot. So bacteria has moved down their esophagus. So, well, stomach has to go, a spleen has to go, an arm, a leg. You think I'm playing? Y'all really think I'm joking? This is really the foundation, the history of psychiatry, which goes into every area of what we call the field of mental health. This is why we shouldn't be so quick to call a person crazy. The very industry that we are using as the measuring stick, as the standard to determine who's sane and who's insane, who's crazy and who is not, is crazy as hell to begin with. Really crazy. Let's go on to the next person. In Leipzig, Germany, you had someone by the name of Wilhelm Wundt. This man here, very in particular individual, this is where things get, if they weren't already crazy, this is where things get interestingly wicked and evil. Wilhelm Wundt is a man who came up with this type of theory where man is an animal without a soul. He is a soulless organism to be trained like an animal. He is an animal and he must be trained like one. He has no soul. Therefore, he has nothing to live up to, nothing to look forward to. He is an animal. He must be trained like an animal. This is Wilhelm Wundt in Germany. Stick with me. These are psychiatrists, psychologists. These are the founding fathers, you could say, of this field. Interestingly enough, in 1882, there is a man that a lot of people quote, and I mean, I hear people quote him so much it blows my mind. His name is Friedrich Nietzsche. A lot of people quote Nietzsche as a philosopher. And they say all these different things that sound so enlightening and wonderful. And they do sound that way, but read a little more about what Nietzsche has said. For example, one quote of Nietzsche is, quote, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." End quote. Nietzsche. Next person. You have someone here by the name of Ivan Pavlov. Some of you know about Ivan Pavlov. Pavlov's dogs, Pavlovian conditioning. Ivan Pavlov, another individual who actually learned a lot of what he learned from Wilhelm Wundt because he was studying him. These are now the people that we call behaviorists. And now you're going into the area of mental health called behaviorism. So these are the people now who started to shape and control human behavior. These are the people that the US government and other governments started to learn how to control populations, how people should move, how they should walk, how they should talk. The schooling system and the way the schooling system started to become set up was through behaviorism. So Ivan Pavlov, he had different things that he would use as it pertained to stimulus response mechanisms and, of course, condition reflex maneuvers. So, for example, when it comes to the dogs that he would use, he would have dogs come in and put them on the table. He would punch holes in their mouths to collect the amount of saliva that would be produced from their salivary gland. Whenever they would see meat or a treat that he would put on the table. So he'd put a treat on the table, he'd look at their response, and then he would take the treat away. Then he'd put the treat on the table and ring a bell at the same time. And he said, they're still producing saliva. Then he wouldn't put the treat on the table, but he would ring the bell as if he was going to put the treat on the table the same way he did before. And the dog would produce saliva the same way, as if there was a treat or meat still there. He called this a condition reflex. To learn how to control behavior even though things are not logically fitting together, he was able to manipulate the behavior of animals, and then they transferred that to human beings. Rizza, what do you mean? Mr. Pavlov not only did these experiments with dogs, he started to punch holes in the mouths of children. And he would measure their saliva and collect their saliva depending on how much they would produce, etc., to do the same exact thing, conditioning.